All right, and welcome to the next episode of my design process for To the Halls of the Stormlord. This is a OSR module, a Macciato Monsters module that I am working on for the Gauntlet Codex zine. And since last time, I think I made a fair bit of progress off camera. So let's take a little bit of a look at that. To begin with, I'll just give you the rundown on what this is all about. So as viewers of my previous streams will know, excuse me, this is a module about a group of adventurers scaling a mountain, going through a dwarven fortress, and encountering the Stormlord Arnmundur, who is a sworn enemy of the gods and who is trying to create this mighty storm using the dwarves' technology to forge a god-killing spear. What the PCs don't know at the start is that they are doing all of this at the behest of a Valkyrie, a servant of the gods. This Valkyrie is called Uglahildr. She appears in many guises, but manipulates events to her advantage, drives a hard bargain, and is fearless and cunning. So, as the PCs go through the dungeon, they will be killed off, and if they die in battle, then there is a chance that they will come back as Einherjar, as these immortal thralls of the gods, warrior thralls of the gods. So mechanically speaking, what I've done is to create a move here. When a PC dies in battle, not to a trap or poison or falling or etc., weather, so on, they will roll the die of fate. On a success, they will be revived by Uglahildr, who will get 3 hold over them, which he can spend to revive them from death or compel them to do something for her. So this is something I might revise, but that's the basic thing. So an Einherjar gains 3 levels upon their transition, so they go up 3 levels in the game, in Macciato Monsters. And they no longer require rest or provisions, which is a big deal in this module, because the weather is going to interfere with both of those things big time. What I think maybe something concerning is if they don't need to rest, when can they recover and when can they not recover? So let's add a note about this. Okay, if they don't rest, then when do they recover HP? Under what conditions? And aside from that, when a PC becomes an Einherjar, the player must describe what memories Uglahildr takes from them with their mortality. So this is a purely fictional thing, but I think it should add a little bit of characterization and a little bit of pathos to this game, which is otherwise kind of a character funnel. And a character funnel is a type of dungeon designed to kill off a lot of characters. And oftentimes, playing in a character funnel means sort of playing with a kind of absurdist or slapstick sort of approach, right? Because if your characters are dying all the time and they're up against these absurd odds, it can be a better table experience to not care about them too much, right? If you watch Adam Coble run Moldvay D&D in Keep on the Borderlands, and watch how they treat their characters in that series, you'll get a pretty good idea of what the sort of standard attitude is, which is like, oh, look at how absurdly useless our characters are and what ridiculous situations they get themselves killed in, right? That's not really what I want to do here, which is why I added this move, which does give a chance of hanging on to your character, but at the same time, it alters them fundamentally. And the reason why it alters them fundamentally is that, just a moment here, when Uglahilder spends a hold to compel a PC to act, the referee, that's the GM in, should be capital R, referee, the referee states the task she assigns to the PC, and this becomes a goal for the party. So in Macciato Monsters, unlike a lot of OSR games, the advancement is determined by achieving goals that the party sets for itself. And I'm kind of playing with that by making it so that this NPC can actually insert party goals herself by spending hold, by spending points that she gets when she turns a PC into an Einherjar. Fulfilling the goal advances the level of all the PCs except the Einherjar, who cannot level. So there's this tension in the party between the PCs who will benefit from following Uglahilder's directives, but then also might, at a player level, not actually share her motivations, right? So there's a kind of like, do I trust her? Do I really want what she wants? If I do the thing she wants, then I'll get some XP. Whereas for the Einherjar, they don't get any XP, but they are fictionally motivated to do what Uglahilder wants them to do. So this is something that's going to have to be checked in playtesting, because maybe it doesn't actually work. But I'm trying to create some intra-party conflict, some mechanically driven intra-party conflict. Right. So yeah, and then there's a whole bunch of emphasis on the weather in this module. This is to the halls of the Stormlord, right? So the storm is really big. Right. So aside from that, let's take a look now. Well, I do want to add that one thing. Roll the die of fate. So this is a thing that's maybe too swingy. Okay. Let's go and take a look at how we're doing with the first leg of the journey, the first section. This is, might as well change this font. Oops. There we go. Yeah. Oops. There. So this is the first section of the journey, and since the last time I recorded, I've done a lot of editing or with the help of my friend Lauren. So thanks, Lou. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. Yeah. So yeah, with the help of my friend Lauren, I did a bunch of editing, cut some things down. And I've got some further suggestions from Richard Rain, who is the guy who wrote the Wreck of the Void Hatred module that I used as a major reference for writing this. So he's a guy who knows a whole lot about OSR modules and runs a whole bunch of black hack games, which the black hack is some of the inspiration for Macciato Monsters. So there's a lot of overlap in what we're doing. And I'm really interested to try to implement some of his feedback in addition to what I've already got in here from what Lauren suggested. So let's read over what we have here for the first leg of the journey. So it says, in former times, the dwarves of Shathar-Dûm carved out the gates of their fortress high atop the slopes of Mount Shathurazan, and built a great highway to facilitate commerce with those who live below. The road is broad and level, and is built through and across sheer rock faces in many areas. However, it has been overtaken by the elements since the dwarves rejected contact with outsiders and turned towards their experimentation with planar gates. Since the storms began to rage upon the mountain, they have ravaged the paths and vegetation of its faces, and ascent of the mountain will not be easy. The ascent takes 1d4 days, modified by weather conditions. During the ascent, the PCs will face encounters twice per day and once per night, rolling risk die, DR10, on the encounter table below. If the PCs follow the road to Shathar-Dûm, they will find its entrance after they have passed all 3 locations and traveled for the required period of time. If they diverge from the road, they must roll to avoid getting lost. So yeah, there's going to be some parts that I might change or adjust here, but let's talk a little bit more about this. Yeah, I also have some comments here from my friend Shane and my writing collaborator on a different game. Yeah, there's been many sources of input, so I'm very fortunate. I'm incredibly fortunate to have so much feedback from so many talented people. So let's first talk about these mountainside scenes. The idea here is these are things that the GM can intersperse between the locations that I already have in the game, like the defined locations. And the main reason I'm doing this is because they can be evocative, but also because I don't have enough word count to provide a lot of locations for the GM to work with. So something short and pithy is going to be more effective than providing a kind of lopsided adventure that focuses too much word count on one section over another. Yeah, don't mess with planar gates. That's probably a good idea. We'll see how it works out for Arnmunder. Here's some mountainside scenes. A copse of alpine larch, the tree. A boulder covered in moss and dusted with fresh fallen snow. A squirrel carrying a large pine cone. A pair of white-tailed deer hiding in the mouth of a gorge. A fallen statue of a dwarf and human shaking hands. A clump of grass that has taken root in a buckle in the road. And the sun setting behind a sharp-backed arete. So these are just nice little snippets, visual snippets that the GM can throw in to try to spice up some of the encounters. So let's take a look at these locations, and then we'll take a look at the encounter table and the weather. Thanks, Lou. I spent a lot of time on Wikipedia looking at mountaineering stuff to try to figure this out. Out of these, I'd say I might want to change one or two of them, but I think they sound good. They have they read well. That's important. So the next thing we're going to talk about here is the locations. So Tarbzaras Timberland. So just below the timberline, this alpine forest was once logged by dwarves and humans alike for the lumber of its pine trees. Those years have long since passed, and the abandoned loggers' tools are now concealed by the forest's understory and rocky soil. The trees at the forest edge are bent, twisted, and flagged by the harsh elements, but shelter may be found at its heart. So digging in the understory can reveal the following remnants of industry. You get DR8 Dwarven Forestry tools, so axes, saws, wedges, hammers, etc. So in Macciato Monsters, equipment uses risk dice. And what that means is you say I want to use some of my dwarven forestry tools. This is like adventuring gear in Dungeon World. But then you roll your d8, and if you get a 1 to 3 result, it steps down to a d6. So the more you use it, the less uses of the thing you have, and the lower quality it becomes. So just a second, excuse me. I was going to sneeze. So yeah, the more degraded the stuff gets, the less you can use it. And my idea here for including these dwarven forestry tools was twofold. One, in an OSR module, as is suggested by the really great text Principia Apocrypha, you should include tools with specific uses that have no clear immediate use. And the reason why you want to do this is it encourages players to be inventive with the tools, right? They can use them for something that they might not obviously think of. So, for example, maybe they get a forestry axe, but then they use it to like pry something open within the Dwarven Fortress. Or they use a wedge that is meant for splitting lumber, but they use it to stop a door so that somebody can't get in, right? Like, these kinds of unorthodox uses of the tools are what allow the players to be creative in solving problems, and that's one of the main focuses of play in OSR games. The other thing I really wanted to do here was include some environmental storytelling, right? So you include these abandoned tools, and this tent preserved from the elements by a wooden crate. So kind of suggests that like they were shipping things back and forth to the camp. Oh, it's like a haiku. That's good. Thank you. Yeah, the image in my head when I came up with the scenes was like nature documentaries, Yeah, and maybe some Miyazaki in my head too. But also these. This freebooters rum, right? So this is maybe something like the humans brought to the camp when they were working here. But I wanted to just include these handful of things that are not immediately useful because they are artifacts left behind by the people who used to live here. And this is something that is both suggested by Principia Apocrypha and also is something I really, really love from Dark Souls. The way they do environmental storytelling in Dark Souls in a kind of GM voice, right? Like you pick up an item in Dark Souls and it gives you that little description of how it's significant to the broader world in a voice that is completely like what a GM would narrate. So I really like that kind of thing. I want to include more of it, but this is kind of what I was doing here. So none of this stuff is like you get a healing potion or a short sword +2, right? Or even you get a mountaineer's pickaxe, right? Like something that would be much more obviously useful in this situation. The tent is obviously useful, but I wanted to include this thing that is preserved from the elements by a wooden crate, because it's like maybe they buried it or they left it behind in a hurry, or who knows why it's there, right? You can think about it. So let's move on to something a little bit more sort of challenge-oriented. So the Fulunzigul Fellfield is a daunting mass of scree that was left covering the remains of the old Dwarven highway after an enormous landslide. In the long years since Shather Doom was closed to the outside world, the scree has been overgrown with a thin layer of cushion plants and tough weeds. The Fellfield is otherwise rocky, rough, and unstable, making its traversal slow-going. Amongst the scree, there are nodules and fragments of silver ore worth D10 silver. And the party may spot Uglahilder watching them from a distance from across the fell field. So this is outside of the encounter table. The party may just see Uglahilder standing off like through the mist or the snow, watching them. And if they run after her, then maybe she disappears. Who knows, right? That's up to the GM. But, you know, the important thing here is... I really like the word Fellfield. Feels like something that would be included in Tactics Ogre as a sort of overwrought geographical location name. And there's few things I like more than Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics, so had to include that sort of thing. But also, when I thought about this scree, I was thinking about... What is this? The Frank Slide. Yeah. If you've ever been to the... yes, Lou, you know what's up. Tactics Ogre is so good. Yeah, Canada's deadliest rock slide. So you can look at all this scree. When you go through the Frank Slide, it's really, really impressive. It's just this huge rock slide that went like all the way across this valley. And the Trans-Canada Highway is plowed, or is like driven right through the scree. And there's like boulders and smaller rocks. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting place, and that was the inspiration for this area here. Definitely. So the next place I had in mind was the Baraz-Zarok face. This is a stale hung, pitted with deep chasms that was once spanned by roads that spoke of the prodigious skill of the engineers of Shother Doom. Rock slides and the elements have shattered these works and once again made Baraz-Zarok a perilous area to traverse. Some parts of the road remain intact, but the gaps wrought by natural decay must be belayed with mountaineering tools. Characters must save or take D12 falling damage. So really there is, this is just kind of a standard mountaineering test, but I like to give a little bit of sort of backstory to some of the encounters that the characters run into. Yeah. And let's take a look at the encounter table. So the encounter table also the encounter table also uses a risk die, and it has the following results. So if you roll a 1 to 3, you step down the risk die, so you go from a D12 down to a D8 or D10. I made the same mistake in playing Sig earlier today, but yes, it's a D12 down to a D10. And you roll your D12 twice, mixing the results. So this should actually be you roll your DR twice. The avalanche or rock slide is the next one, either above or underneath the party. I took this directly from Stone Dragon Mountain. Characters must save or take D12 damage. Again, the fictional complications for what happens here should be a lot more complex than just taking damage, but that's left up to the GM. The next one is a Storm Sorcerer. They bestow the gift of lightning upon those they meet. They use lightning bolts and make otherworldly howls. So if you're wondering why these characters do not have a clear disposition, like they want to attack the party or something, if we look at Macciato Monsters, you can see that the encounter table actually has a roll for a disposition. So let's see. Where is that? So it will be monsters. No. Monsters and encounters, yes. So yeah, you can see the reaction table here. Yeah, Stone Dragon Mountain is great. I want to run it so much, but it's tough to organize. Yeah, at least it was a huge inspiration for writing this, so that's something. So the reaction tables here, these are going to determine what the reaction of like the Storm Sorcerer is, right? Maybe he's looking for prisoners. Maybe she's scavenging or hunting. Maybe she's fighting with some other monster, or taking camp. Like this is completely left up to the dice. So that's why none of the encounters have a clear disposition to start out with. All right. So the next one is a rogue storm elemental. So I'm thinking like this is something that got out of the planar portal and is just kind of wandering around on the mountain. It manifests as a sharp local change in weather. So this isn't exactly like a will-o-wisp. I'm thinking it's something more abstract. Like there's a localized weather system that is gonna mess with your shit. It's insubstantial, so it's hard to hit, and it has a concussive gust as its attack. The next is this thing I made up, the Utenbucke. A giant and terrible goat of Shathurazan. So it's just a big goat. That's what it is. Maybe it'll become your friend. Who knows? Next, we have Uglahilder herself. So these stats, I'm going to take these out and move them into a separate box for her, because she's going to get her own little description. Yeah, that's right. You can't go wrong with goats, especially on a giant mountain. And then we have these great rock serpents, and I'm kind of imagining these are like something like Pokemon, like whatever that Pokemon is that's like a big rock serpent. I forget. It's like one of the original 108 or something. Or no, there's not 108 Pokemon. It's some other number. But anyway. Yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind here. Next, we have the Dwarven Refugees. So these are people who have fled the violence inside of Shothardoom. So who knows how they'll react to the party. The dwarves do not really like outsiders, but hey, they're desperate. You'll notice that they only have a morale die of a DR6, so they'll break very easily. Because they're desperate refugees, right? And next we have another group of Fairweather Company adventurers. So these are other adventurers that have been sent by the company up the mountain. And I really like this kind of thing in... obviously, you get it in like keep on the Borderlands, but it's also a thing you see a lot in Etrian Odyssey that they do, where as you're going through the dungeon... you run into other parties of adventurers and have a chat with them. So I also really like this because if you get... So maybe the goat, it appears... It's like, yeah, it's like at first you look at it at a distance and you're like, oh, the goat can't possibly be that large. And then you get up to it and it's like, no, that's a big goat. Yeah, I feel like it's probably like the size of like a bear or something. That's just in my head. But yeah, the adventurers, it's really cool to run into them because if you do, like, first of all, they could, if you say you got this result and then you rolled up the adventurers and some other group, they could be fighting each other. And also, uh, when you meet NPC adventurers, one of those NPCs could become one of the player's next PCs if their character dies, right? So that could be really fun as well. And then finally, we have like the highest result is a bunch of elven travelers. And I imagine these are kind of like tourists who've come to see what the storm's all about. I wanted to have like one, yeah. Yeah, totally. You can't trust the people you run into necessarily. Especially because they're all like a bunch of ruffians who've been recruited into this fair weather company on short notice. Um, and yeah, so the Elven Travelers, this is kind of like just something you see in a lot of OSR modules where there's like somebody there who's kind of out of place. But also, like, I just like throwing elves into this mix, even though elves aren't mentioned anywhere else in the module, because they're probably like, completely alien to this environment, to an even greater extent than most of the adventurers are. And just kind of here to see what's going on. Or maybe they have an agenda. Who knows? It's up to the GM to decide. That's the fun of this stuff. Okay, so the last thing to talk about here is the weather table. So this is, again, a risk die. You roll a DR12. And because this is a weather table, I'm following the rules in Macciato Monsters. So on the maximum die result, the travelers get a break, and the risk die goes up one step. So you would go, like, say, down to a DR10, but then up again to a DR12. So it can kind of fluctuate. So here's the things. So the best weather you can possibly get is a windstorm. There's no sunny weather because you're in the middle of a magical storm, so it's never going to be sunny. I mean, it could be sunny and incredibly windy, but it's not like perfect, nice summer weather. You can get a rainstorm. You can get wet downbursts. So these are like sudden gusts of wind coming downward with rain. So I could see this being like extremely dangerous if you're trying to belay across a rock face or something. And movement is very difficult, has unpredictable effects. Next is snow glare. So if there's snow in the area, then maybe the sun comes out, but then you have glare to deal with. Hail fog. So it's like fog, but like there's hail coming down within the fog. So it's even worse. Which means that your visibility is really low, and also you can't rest anywhere in open areas because you're just going to keep getting hit with hail. Next is a blizzard. It's just a straight up blizzard. Then we have an ice storm. Movement extremely dangerous without equipment. So you definitely need some spikes and stuff. Then we have a severe hailstorm. Characters out of shelter take D6 damage. So, and then extreme cold. Characters must save or take D4 damage. Yeah, and this is even in shelter, they would take D4 damage, which is why this is one step up. And then next we have hurricane force winds. Rest is completely impossible. And whiteout conditions. Visibility is extremely limited, so this is like a blizzard, but even worse. And then finally, we have the worst possible weather, which is thunder snow. You have near zero visibility. It is very cold. There's lightning, and you have to save or take D8 damage from the cold and the lightning. So the weather is always terrible. The best you could have is a windstorm. So this is going to be like a main thing in play. The GM's going to have to make a lot of rulings about like how the weather affects the situation. Okay, so that is what I've done so far. Next, I'm going to take a little break here, and then I'm going to move on to Richard's suggestions for what we should do to alter this stuff. All right. So let's take a look. So one suggestion Richard had was 1d4 days is too swingy for the length of the ascent. So maybe set it to 3 days and use wisdom checks to see how fast or slow the ascent goes. I kind of like this idea. So the ascent takes 3 days. Three days modified by weather conditions. Maybe enough right there. Like, I don't know if we even need to roll for this. Possibly at the start of the day. They could make a wisdom roll. But here's my thing about this. Assuming that they follow the road, there's not really navigation involved. So I think this is something that the wisdom roll is a thing that will apply if they go off-road. So yeah, 3 days modified by weather conditions. That's fine. So we'll think about altering things with the off-road, because I want to work on this off-road concept a little bit more and develop that. So you might also offer some suggestions about under what conditions they can find the useful stuff in the timberland and the fellfield. So if they arrive in daylight, it's not too stormy, they'll see. So what conditions could they possibly retrieve the materials under? Well, it's always going to be stormy. So let's see. Digging in the understory. Digging in the understory. So what about this? If the PCs take the time to dig in the understory, they can reveal the following remnants of industry. So this is kind of to say that it may be difficult, right? Like, it may be you're doing this in a blizzard. That might not be advisable. But if you take the time to do it, you can do it, right? And then this is going to be like maybe roll a wisdom check. Kind of feel like I can leave that up to the GM, though. Next, we can take a look at here, the fellfield. Yes, amongst the scree, there are nodules and fragments of silver ore worth silver D10. That's no moon. That's silver ore. Maybe... So maybe this is like a wisdom roll. So what about this? Hidden amongst the scree, there are nodules and fragments of silver ore worth silver D10. Yeah, I like that more. That's clearer that it is not easy to find them. Okay, good. The next thing, yeah, we could totally have some elvish pilgrims going up the mountain. No doubt. The next thing, since the trail up the mountain is kind of a point crawl, if you have space in your adventure, it might be cool to give an alternate path or a deceptive shortcut. So here's what I feel about this. First, I think it's really good to avoid a purely linear path. But second, in order to make a road, the dwarves probably would have carved a linear path, right? Like, we should think about what would the dwarven engineers do? Would they drive two highways up the mountain? That seems kind of unlikely. So what I think this would make sense to be is like, yes, you can stick to the road and then you make it up in 3 days. However, if you diverge from the road, there are the following conditions that apply, right? Because maybe these are like animal trails, or there are old dwarven roads, or something like that, right? Or there is like you can climb up through a gap in the mountain. So I kind of feel like, yes, we should have these alternate paths available, but they should not be clearly delineated as two separate paths, because I think there's only one obvious and good path up the mountain. It is up to the players to decide if they want to go off-road. And yeah, I mean, this is like, what I'm thinking here is essentially the same as in Perilous Wilds. You know, you can undertake a perilous journey, or you can, what is it, like, journey by a safe path or something like that. So I think it's just like the journey move, right? So the journey move would be going up the road, and then the undertake a perilous journey would be going off-road. So I kind of feel like we need to create like an undertake a perilous journey thing for that option, which then means that the party isn't bottlenecked into just taking one path, which is not really very fun. So let's think about that. So they have encounters in the weather table. I feel like it probably goes here. So this is a heading 2. Okay, so we're going to travel off-road. I think I included a little note about this already. So if they diverge from the road, they must roll to avoid getting lost. So that's a good start. We're looking at page 24. One character checks with int with a map, or with wisdom without one. If they roll with disadvantage, if they don't know the area, do not have a map or compass, or in a hurry, they roll with advantage if they have a trait such as explorer, ranger, etc. Okay, that's all good. And if they get lost, I'm kind of feeling like I want a... I kind of want to use this framework, but complicate it up. Ooh, chances of auroras, the northern lights, etc. I like that. That would be very cool. You know what I kind of want, though? Well, yeah. So, yeah, I'm kind of thinking here about... thinking a little bit about our good pal Irithyll of the Boreal Valley. One of the best areas ever designed in a video game. Pretty cool area there. Man, Dark Souls, like, Dark Souls 3, just, their environment artists are so good. This is a complete digression, but, like, I am so excited for whatever game From Software comes up with next, because what happened during the development process of Dark Souls is that they released the first Dark Souls game. It was an enormous success, and then they staffed up in a really big way. And the new talent they hired on ended up working on Dark Souls 3. And they ended up doing all the environment design, so you get awesome shit like this. But you also get, like, what is it? The Ring City. You know? Like some of this, like, this is so cool. This is just the best shit. Like, I love this. Like, I think the actual level design of Ring City is a little bit weak, but the environment art is so cool. Like, this idea of, like, all the cities in the world just, like, slowing off into this pit at the end of time. Just the best shit. The best. It's the best. Okay, well, anyway. Let's get back to the design process here. I get a little bit excited when I start thinking about Dark Souls. Let's continue here. We are talking about the slopes of Shizurazan, and we are talking about the possibility of having an aurora. Ooh, maybe. Oh yeah, maybe there's some ruins in the scree. I could totally see that. Like, let's see. Yeah. Okay, this is a really cool idea. This is a possibility of a shortcut, right? So you go, hidden amongst the scree, there are nodules and fragments of silver ore or silver D10. Significant excavation of the scree will reveal a, what do you call that? Volcanic tube, volcanic tubes, lava tubes. Yeah. Hell yeah. So, we'll reveal an ancient lava tube running to the heart of Shathur Doom. So this is like a shortcut, right? That could be really cool. So a significant excavation of the scree will first reveal ruined dwarven battlements, which once concealed an ancient an ancient lava tube running to the heart of Shather Doom. Yeah. And then we want like one more sentence, like in the shattered ruins may be found maybe found 1d4 dwarven remains. One d4 remains of the doomed defenders. They think that's no. Yeah, I think they might think that's dwarven. Maybe found dwarven remains. I think that's good. The shattered ruins may be found 1d4 dwarven remains. And there is a treasure table to roll on, right? That's gear and gold. Like I can roll on this. We could roll on this table. But I'm wondering if there's a treasure table that we should look at. Don't think so. So maybe, oh, wealth and valuables. So why don't we say maybe found 1d4 dwarven remains along with 1d4 melee weapons and armor. Okay. I think that's looking pretty good. So hidden amongst the scree, there are nodules and fragments of silver ore worth silver d10. A significant excavation of the scree will... So we can make a new paragraph here. Significant excavation of the scree will first reveal ruined dwarven battlements which once concealed an ancient lava tube running to the heart of Shather Doom. In the shattered ruins may be found 1d4 dwarven remains along with 1d4 melee weapons and armor. Cool. All right. And I mean, that's pretty good loot. If you get that stuff, that's like dwarf forged stuff. We should note that. Dwarven craft. Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Now let's think about traveling off-road. So I had those rules up. Hmm. Why don't we take a look at Stone Dragon Mountain and see if we can find something cool there. Just wait for my NAS to spin up. So I don't think it has any kind of like random table to roll with. But let's think about a oops. This isn't exactly what I need. So I'm thinking like maybe there's a table. Maybe there's a table that you roll on if you go off-road. So if PCs diverge from the road, they must roll to avoid getting lost. Maybe they're rolling to avoid getting lost. Maybe they're rolling to find a route to trailblaze. Yeah. Yeah. wayfinding. To find relatively unmarked and often mislabeled routes. Yes. Dead Reckoning. So let's say that they must wayfind. Wisdom with the weather mod. Yeah, I mean, wisdom subject to advantage or disadvantage according to the weather, maybe. I could see that, totally. Okay, so let's change this. Off-road wayfinding. If they diverge from the road, they must roll to find their way or get lost. And then we'll just like make a link here. Or maybe just see off-road wayfinding. Okay. So I feel like this is probably like a D6. I don't think this is a DR. I think this is a D6. So at any time, at any point in their ascent, the PCs may depart the Dwarven Highway and attempt to scale the off-road faces of the mountain. So this means to do so, they must make a whiz check. Do we use whiz? Where's the... Yeah, whiz check. They must make a whiz check subject to advantage, disadvantage. According to the weather. Weather conditions. On a miss, or is that what you call it in this game? Let's check out stat checks. Fumble. I guess it's not written. So we'll say, yeah. On a miss, so on a miss, oh, okay, here we go. Not they. To do so, so let's follow the verbiage used in the game here. One character, yeah. Okay, to do so, one character checks in with a map or whiz without one, subject to advantage to disadvantage according to weather conditions. On a miss, the party, or no, the navigator rolls a wayfinding d6 as below. Okay, so on a hit, on a success, on a success, the party advances to the next location, or on a success, the party rolls an encounter then advances to the next location in the ascent. On a miss, the navigator rolls a wayfinding d6 below. Okay, so the worst possible outcome here. Let's start at the easiest. Okay, so what's the easiest kind of off-road trail to follow? Let's say this is so first of all, the easiest kind of off-road trail will be an old dwarven what will you call that? An old dwarven ranger's trail. Slow but easy going. The next we'll say is an animal trail. It's not what I have in mind. Yeah, lava tube. Animal paths? What do you call that? Trails, yeah. Animal trails. Okay. Yeah, maybe an animal trail. Okay, an animal trail. Better used by goats than adventurers. Dwarven leavings. Yes. Okay. Next. Let's say, what's the next worst kind of trail you might have? Oh, maybe, up a mountain, a ridge. A narrow ridge. A narrow ridge. This would be like, unstable footing and vertigo. Then we would have something like, what do you call that? An arete. A snowy arete. A straight but unreliable path of ascent. And then you could have like a sheer rock face. A sheer rock face can be climbed through great exertion and care. And then finally, the worst would be like what? Like an overhanging glacier. What do you call that? Overhang. Overhang. Let's look at ice. Ice climbing. Grades. So like something like this. A glacial pitch. Low angle glacial pitch. A low angle glacial pitch can only be scaled with equipment and skill. Okay, so on a miss, the navigator rolls a wayfind d6 as below to determine the path of ascent. Yeah. And okay, let's edit this down. So at any point in their ascent, the PCs may depart the Dwarven Highway and attempt to scale the off-road faces the mountain. To do so, one character checks int with a map. Okay, so I want to set this off because this is clearly rule shit. So let's split this off. On a success, I think I might do this. On a success, the party, and this should be actually, why don't we? That's not what I wanted. Okay. On a success, the party rolls an encounter, then advances to the next location in the ascent. On a miss, the navigator rolls a wayfinding d6 as below to determine the path of ascent. Oh yeah, there's gonna be some good reasons. This is, I mean, this is bad, right? This is like a terrible place. This is gonna kill a lot of characters. characters can always return to the road if the path is too dangerous. Okay. At a cost of time. Yeah. Okay, how does that look? Does that look good? I think that looks pretty good. I think this is like, it makes sense. The dire goat is the reason to ascend the mountain. Well, maybe for some character, I that could be a goal, is to befriend a dire goat, right? Okay. Cool. We did the thing. So was there anything else we wanted to look at? What did Richard have to say? Oh, right, the Einherjar move. So let's take a look at that. Okay. So they will roll the die of fate. I don't think this is necessarily the best option. So he says, make it less swingy and make it more costly. Okay. Yeah, I think this is, it doesn't need to be swingy because it's only under the condition that they die in battle that this triggers. When a PC dies in battle, they will be revived by Uglahilder, who will get 3 hold over them, which you can spend to revive them from death or compel them to do something for her. Okay. Good. As an Einherjar. Oops. Nope. That's not right. That's not the correct. 5. As an Einherjar by Uglahilder, who will get 3 hold of them, which you can spend to revive them from death or compel them to do something for her. Okay. Yeah. I think that's better. That's better. And yes, resistance rolls, right? So, so when Uglahilder spends a hold to compel a PC to act, the referee states the task she assigns to the PC, and this becomes a goal for the party. So when Uglahilder spends a hold to compel a PC to act, the character may choose to resist with Wiz. If they concede or fail the roll, the referee states the task she assigns to the PC, and this becomes a goal for the party. Oh, like Bifrost. Yeah. Fuck yeah. That's really cool. Let's think about this. I think I want this. Okay, so this is what I'm thinking here. Maybe one. So we have different forms for Ugelhilder that I have in mind. One is that she appears as an owl. The other is that she appears as a young woman in a cloak of owl feathers holding a branch of birch. And the other one is that she appears as a battle maiden. But I think she could also appear as an aurora. That could be pretty sweet as well. So I think that might make that one of the ways the GM can choose to manifest her. Because, yeah, it would kind of, like, allude to the idea that maybe she's somehow connecting the area to Bifrost or to the realm of the gods. Cool. So maybe that's the next thing I need to write is the table for her stuff. For the party. And on a fumble, let's see, hang on. There's a possibility of something interesting here. On a fumble, the character loses their free will and becomes utterly enthralled to Ugelhilder's will. Okay, so you can choose to roll, right? You can choose to roll to resist, but if you do choose to roll, that means there's a 1 in 20 chance that your character is gone. Okay. Cool. So let's just take a look then. Let's think about writing up Ugelhilder here. It's a heading to... Okay, so Ugelhilder. She is... These are her attributes. Appears in many guises, manipulates advantage to her advantage, drives a hard bargain, fearless and cunning. Okay, so we need to describe... So first of all, let's move her stat block here. From here. Where is it? So change this to C, Oopla, Hilder. No. As per manifested form. C table. And so she gets a stat block of this as Battle Maiden. So she has 4 HD, armor of DR10. She has the Eldfuglen Spear, the Firebird Spear, which does 2d12 damage, and she has a morale of DR12 because she's a badass. As, what should we call her? The young Oracle. We'll say she has like HD 3, armor, no armor. She doesn't have any armor because she's, well, maybe like armor because she's got that robe on of DR4. Weapon would be like, oh, I don't know if she has a weapon. I think it's more like she would fight with her fists, but she would also be able in this form to like mind control people, use like the power of persuasion, or like hypnotize them or something like that. Yeah, like a presence attack. I like that idea. A presence attack. Yeah, like unworldly presence, something like that. Something like that. Unworldly beauty, unworldly presence. I think she would have like a morale of DR10. And let's take a look at this monster table to see what we can do. Yeah, like spirit possession, check whiz or become his slave. Yeah, this is what I'm thinking about here. Check whiz or become her slave. And her attack would be like grappling, maybe grappling D4. Okay, so she can appear as the Battle Maiden, the Young Oracle, the Snowy Owl, we'll say they have an HD of 2, no armor. They definitely get like something for being super fast. So I think it'll be like, so it'll be HD2, has no armor, claws, D6, can, I think that it'll have like, terrifying call. Terrifying screech. Will be like check, whiz, or become, or freeze up with fear. Claws, screech, flying, attacks without warning. Right. Yeah. That's a good point. Attacks quickly and silently. Yeah. And it has a morale of like DR6. I don't think that this is, it's just like boom, come down and take out your scalp. Maybe this is like a D8 clause. This is a supernatural owl. So it appears as snowy owl. And she can also manifest as like maybe like an aurora elemental. Has like HD 3. And can so like HD 3 grants visions insubstantial vast and like does some other weird shit like let's see. Yeah, like, yeah, grants visions. I really like this idea of like D10 enlightenment. Like you see a true path, uh you see a glimpse of something beyond the mortal realm, right? And it just like fucks you up. Morale of DR10. Some weird cosmic horror shit going on. Okay, so these are the stat blocks for the different forms of Uglahilder. And let's describe them. Uglahilder is a magical being from beyond the mortal realm. To suit her purpose as a servant of the gods, she has been created the ability to shift forms. She may shift these forms at will as long as she is not preoccupied or engaged. So I'm thinking like I'll give a little description. Uglahilder. No, we'll just say an armored warrior of striking beauty. She her armor, yes, a warrior of striking beauty. Her armor is has been crafted by divine master smiths and is as black as darkest night. Her spear, the Eld Fuglin, is said to have been crafted from tooth of the Fenris wolf itself, and burns with the terrifying light of the sun. So this should be like, I mean, I'm not super worried about formatting, but maybe, no, that's no good. Okay. And okay. So the young Oracle, young girl with tawny skin, brilliant yellow eyes, wearing only a cloak of boy, of snowy owl feathers, and holding a branch of the birch tree. She speaks prophecy and yeah, I like that. She speaks prophecy and floats 3 what yeah, and floats a meter off the ground. Snowy Owl. Unassuming at first sight. In this form, Ugla Hilder watches and waits to strike. Some say this is her truest form. And the Aurora Elemental. Creature of dreams, hallucinations, and nightmares. The elemental grants mortals visions into realms beyond their ken. Okay, let's cool. That's good. And then we're going to take the remove and throw that down there. Cool. Ooh, shimmers in the evening sky. Yeah. Creature of dreams, hallucinations, and nightmares. That an elemental grants mortals visions into realms beyond their ken. Shimmering in the night sky above the elemental grants mortals visions into realms beyond their ken. Okay, this should all be all right. Nice. We're done that. So I think this is a very good first draft for Uglahilder. So let's make up a new page for her. And we'll just drop that in there. make this title to 3 and 2. And let's do the formatting. This is Germania, and this is Laura. Okay. Germania. Set. Date title match. And then all the rest of this should be cool. And need to move this into nice. I like it. That's good. Okay. We did Ugelhilder and we did the revisions of the slopes. There's only, so thanks so much, Blake. I think your help was awesome there. I really, really appreciate all of it. You'll definitely get a credit in the in the subtitle or the opening matter of the module. It's really great stuff. Thanks so much. So the last thing I want to do today before I quit is get some ideas from Kazarak. So let's make a new entry in here for Kazarak. Okay, so Kazarak is this awesome module by Ray Otis. Yeah, it's part of his Plunder Grounds series, which you can get on by subscribing to his Patreon, the Plunder Grounds Patreon, and all of the modules in that series are really cool. They're all Dungeon World oriented, and as far as I know, Jason Cordova, who is one of the sort of leaders of the Gauntlet, founders and leaders of the Gauntlet, is a sort of advisor on this, and also yeah, right there, Jason Cordova. So yeah, this is a super cool series, but I'm specifically interested in Kazarak because it is a module that is concerned with a dwarven fortress. So influences listed here are Journey in the Dark and the Bridge of Khazad Doom, the Moria chapters from the Fellowship of the Ring. Nobody does dwarves in their underground cities like Tolkien. I should probably reread those chapters because they're awesome. I don't read that much Tolkien, but I honestly do sing the Song of Durin to myself in my apartment for probably at least once a week. So the dwarf thing, yeah, I think I could grok it, but let's see here. So what is Ray doing in this module? He's got NPCs. Hilar Rock Boots is like the main NPC you can run into. Like any Dungeon World NPC, she has traits and an instinct, moves, and a stat block. The little description. I don't think we have room for any of this stuff. But interesting. Ray explains how to use the risk die in Dungeon World, because that's not something that's typically in the game. That's kind of cool. I mean, it's really nice to have this as a rules reference, but here's the important bit. Kazarak. So, covered in centuries-old ice, the Greater Talons hide a dark secret. Deep within their towering blue peaks lies the fallen citadel of Kazarak, last and greatest of the ancient subterranean city fortresses of the dwarves. Kazarak was not conquered by rampaging hordes like so many other dwarven cities. It fell from within, victim to an evil no dwarf will name. What malevolent force caused a once proud race to abandon the preeminent seat of their ancient culture? Why won't they speak its name? What treasures still lie forgotten in the ancient vaults? Will it ever be safe to return? Scattered throughout the land, the dwarves endure, forging soulless utilitarian objects for coin while they dream of a time when they might regain their former homes and reclaim the glory of their race. Most have given up hope. Unknown to any dwarf outside of your inner circle, you have uncovered a way into Kazarak. As you stand before its massive gates carved from living stone, you know that the days upon days you spent searching and the countless hardships you have suffered are about to pay off. Okay. So these are questions for the group or for the GM. I don't think we're going to do any of these. But I do want to include some kind of like goal prompts similar to this in the module. Yes. That could be really cool. Are there records of other fallen dwarf realms in Kazarak? So they fled there only to have their new home fall. Thus launch expeditions with new lore. Maybe. I do want to include some kind of goal prompts similar to this. So I'm going to make a note of that. So include goal prompts in module similar to Kazarak questions. Impressions. So this is similar to what we were doing with the mountain, but let's see if there's any really cool ones we can riff off of. Block after block of multi-story, empty windowed houses arranged with geometric precision stand under a sky of stone. Pentagonal tower looms over everything, its battlements reaching into the cavern ceiling. Scummy canals are segmented by rusty gates and dotted with abandoned scows, some still loaded with cargo. So the idea here is that you could include an encounter with the description, the impression. So I think a thing that is rather different about Shathar Doom compared to Kazarak is that This is like an ancient place, an ancient ruin that has been abandoned, like Casa Doom. But I think that the situation in Shathar Doom is a lot more like you're going into a war zone. I think it's going to be like the calamity that has happened there is very recent, and it is still in a state of conflict. The intrusive force has not completely taken hold. Um, I like this one though. The cluttered workshop of a genius, prototypes of impossible machines lie scattered in various stages of completion. Yeah. Kick ass. Okay. I like this. So, write impressions with a suggested encounter. Possible complication here is that perhaps more appropriate for DW than an OSR module. Because in an OSR module, you want to... Oh, yeah. No, I mean, there's 100% going to be some dwarven robots in this place. Like, there's no doubt about it. And some of them have definitely gone rogue. That is like 100% going to be an encounter. But yeah, these encounters, like, I don't want to have too many just straight up encounters. I also want to have like some set pieces that are like puzzly, like something that the players can work to figure out, which will be unlike Kazarak. So unlike Kazarak, include problem solving locations. Because this is not Dungeon World where you just are awesome all the time. And these are threats, monsters, cool moves, custom moves. Ooh, I like this. When you try to use or spend your Kazarak treasures without attracting attention, defy danger with wisdom, or be marked as defilers by the dwarves. Entering Kazarak and revealing its secrets and or looting its treasures is forbidden, even to dwarves, for outsiders to have done it. I like it. I like it a lot. So, use of loot can mark a character as a defiler in the eyes of the dwarves. Yeah. Then they have this awesome, like, dwarf mecha that fights the big monster. This is really cool. Power armor, dwarven power armor. Really cool items. Power gauntlets. Ooh. Natural forces. I like it. So this is a this is like a clock. So I'd like to see. Oh, right. This is really important for the module. The area, like, I want each location to have a clear description of whether the weather will strongly affect it or not. I think there's going to be areas like that are open and like have been torn open by the giant fortress crashing into the mountain, where the weather will just be like everybody will be exposed to the weather, and it'll be even more severe because of the tight spaces. So yeah, like we want to talk about areas that are open to the weather and areas that are closed to the weather. So this is unlike Kazarak, include mark as to whether or not area is location is exposed to the elements. Yeah. These are all super cool too. I like these a lot. Like, these are all really good. I don't think I'll include any of this stuff, but like, it's awesome. Maybe, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'll include some of these twists. Like, this one could be really cool. The statue, like, they turn into statues as they die. Fucking awesome. Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah, maybe just reference dwarven twists for cool ideas. Cool. I think that's gonna do it for Kazarak. And I think it's gonna do it for today's stream. So we got a lot done. We wrote this up. We also revised this. And the next thing to do will be to start to write the Fortress of Shather Doom. Yeah. All right, so thanks to everybody who watched. Anybody who is watching this as a VOD. And I will see you all soon for another episode.